And I think it's one of those things as well that you like. Do you ever really get to the other end? It's kind of like a spectrum, like a continuum, isn't it? That you're sort of on this. You're always on that path somewhere, and sometimes you're walking backwards a little bit. Sometimes you're going forward a bit. Sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm really, really far like ahead now. I've like made so much progress, and then another time for whatever reason, you kind of feel like, oh, I've gone back further back down that path. And it can be really silly things like having to talk and about it that can kind of really bring it up for you. Yeah, I just think it's such a personal thing, and I think actually everyone experiences it differently. So there may be people watching that have gone through a very similar circumstance in that they've had their best friend commit suicide, but actually don't feel anything like what I'm feeling. Don't feel the kind of need to see the body, don't feel the need to protect their memories and kind of, make sure they stand their friendship ground, don't feel that they really need to talk to somebody. And I think that's okay too. It's good to know that that's okay. Because there were a lot of days where I didn't want to talk about it. And even now, there's a lot of time where I don't feel the need to talk about it. And I think that's probably why I didn't at the time go, because I kind of thought, I don't need to talk about it. I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. But actually, yeah, there's, like I mentioned about the catastrophizing and the other feelings that kind of come out in other ways. Perhaps those feelings maybe wouldn't be there if I'd kind of dealt with. I always find that a funny term though, dealing with it. Like you go and it's dealt with and it's done, because it's a process, and it's just it's with you always, but sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder. If I could turn back the clock and do things differently, because actually I didn't ever talk to anybody in a professional capacity about what happened, because I think I was kind of thought, well, I've got lots of friends and family that I can talk to if I need to, and my way to cope with it was just, okay, well, I just need to get back to work and keep really busy and take my mind off it. But actually, in hindsight, I think perhaps it would have been good to talk to somebody who completely impartial, because even if there were people that didn't know Rose very well, they knew me, so they kind of maybe would adjust the way they spoke to kind of cater to my needs maybe, or whereas actually if I'd gone to speak to somebody completely impartial, it might have helped to maybe make sense of things, because they don't know me and they don't know her. So actually I think that probably would have been good for me, but I didn't ever get around to doing it. Maybe it's something I can still do, because clearly I think it'd be good to still talk about it, but yeah, I think that's something that if I could go back and do again, I'd probably talk to somebody. And since then, I kind of, because of that, because it was such a trauma and such a shock, one thing that's kind of manifested itself over the years is that I kind of almost expect other bad things to happen. So, if, I don't know, and it seemed to be, for me anyway, that people who were going on journeys or travelling in cars, I'd kind of envisaged that they were going to have an accident and I was going to get a call that someone else had died, and I kind of would start catastrophising about things, which I think is probably quite normal in the sense that, you've had this big trauma, that you've had a big shock for something that you didn't think was ever going to happen. So you kind of think, well, other things could happen that are out of my control and that, I wouldn't expect to happen. So I think that would have been another good thing to maybe talk to somebody impartial about, to just, make sense of those feelings and kind of not worry so much maybe, because otherwise you spend a lot of time worrying, and actually life's not really about worrying. I think my issue, and then actually, and would still be now, would be just where would you find a good person to talk to? Because you could go to your GP, and I'm sure that they'll point you in the right direction, but you kind of almost want like a recommendation, like somebody that is recommended, that they've, you know, like someone could say, oh, I went to this person, I found that they were really good, just like you would with, I don't know, like a hairdresser or like something else, you know. You kind of think it would be nice to be recommended people. So I just wouldn't really know where to start, to be honest. I'd probably go to my GP, but actually I wouldn't know where to start. But maybe that's where something like this could help, because I don't know whether there are, because again, I wasn't really aware of any charities that helped with grief, especially because I was a friend and not, you know, and of course we were so close, but I wasn't her partner, you know, parents, siblings. You kind of feel a bit, not a fraud, because you know, you are you're suffering too, but you kind of feel like, is it that important? So yeah, I wouldn't have known where to go, and certainly nobody mentioned any charities, or, you know, people said, oh, like you should go and talk to someone. I was like, oh yeah, maybe, but no one said, oh, well, here's a number of someone you could talk to, or here's a website you can go to find support. So perhaps if that had been available to me, then maybe I would have been a bit more proactive in doing that. I think, yeah, like I said, I didn't ever feel kind of really angry, because I know from the like minimal research that I've done into kind of that, you know, people do feel angry about suicide, because they kind of feel like, you know, why have you left me and why have you done this to me? And perhaps if I was Rose's partner, or Rose's, you know, maybe because I'm her friend, it's a different, I have a different feeling about it. But I just felt just so desperately sad that, you know, that she was feeling so awful. So actually it wasn't so much anger, it was more, I guess maybe guilt, just a bit of guilt that I, you know, could I have done more, or been there more, or talked to her more, or, you know, provided more support. There's just so many what ifs always with these things, and I think that's you know, the situation with any loss, that actually, yeah, you can't always think, well, what if I'd done this, or what if I'd said that, but ultimately, you know, you can't change the outcome, so it kind of, yeah, sometimes I kind of think, oh, well, you know, what's the point of thinking of the what ifs, because there's nothing I can change. And I think that's probably why I didn't ever go and speak to somebody, because I kind of always thought, well, what are they going to tell me that I don't already know? What are they going to do for me that I can't rationalise myself in my head? But perhaps even just, yeah, having that discussion and kind of talking to other people would just make you kind of feel like, yeah, actually it's fine to feel like the what ifs, you know, when it's fine to feel like you know, you could have done something, and it's fine to feel like that, you know, all those feelings are quite normal, I think. I'm also aware that some people there will be times where you don't want to talk about it, and that's fine. I think that's totally fine, because there's this real big thing of like, you know, talking, and I completely agree that talking is so important, and awareness is so important, but you have to feel ready to talk, because, yeah, that's, you know, it's fine to feel a bit, you know, to want to have private time, or time where it's okay not to talk about things as well. So yeah.